तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामो राम रामो हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामो राम रामो हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामो राम रामो हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So I extend a warm welcome to all the devotees, youth, guests who have assembled this evening on this very interesting topic on the joy of de-addiction. You like the topic? Because we are in a temple and this is a youth festival being conducted, naturally the way we will approach this will be different from the way a doctor would approach. When I was doing a program in MIT in America, one professor came up to me and said that you are introduced as someone from IIT, but you are speaking Bhagavad Gita. Your language is strange. Your dress is strange. Your hairstyle is even more strange. So I'm not able to understand whether you are an engineer or a doctor or philosopher. What exactly are you? So I said, I'm a Vedic psychiatrist. So when we try to approach this topic from the perspective of how one can understand the principle of addiction from the perspective of the mind, the sanskaras of the mind, and today basically we will be discussing the cycle of habits or the cycle of addiction, which consists of 4 steps. And then when you understand these 4 steps about how the principle of addiction is reinforced, then we will be able to come out of that cycle. So I'll begin with a clinical definition, classic definition of addiction as given as a brain disorder characterized by compulsive engagement in rewarding stimuli despite adverse consequences. So the last 2 words are important. Despite adverse consequences. So I have my friend Sarvabhauma Prabhu, and he used to always have this dialogue to anyone who would find smoking. And he would tell them, oh, you're smoking. there are 3 benefits of smoking. And the guy would get bewildered. That nobody ever told him that there are benefits of smoking. He said, what are the 3 benefits? He said, the first benefit is, if you smoke, thieves will never come to your house. Second benefit, dog will never bite you. And third benefit, you will conquer old age. I said, wow, how come I never knew this? If I knew this, I may have smoked more. So then he explained, because of smoking, you will keep coughing all night. So how can thief come near your house? And because of old age, your lungs will be in so much trouble. They'll be so sick, you'll have to walk with a walking stick, seeing the stick, which dog will bite you. And you will conquer old age because you will die young. So there is no question of old age. So therefore, statistics reveal that 75% of Indian households have at least one member who is addicted to some intoxicant. I am not saying Google Baba. And as per WHO, there are more than 7.2 crore Indians who are addicted to some kind of drugs. These are facts. And around 10 suicides happen per day in India due to drug abuse. So we are looking at transforming the character of the youth of this country. We are looking at transforming the character of the people, because the schools and colleges you go to, they definitely teach you good skills. But if you have all the skills but you do not have the will, then what's the point? So therefore, the whole principle of education is to equip you with the best kind of skills and the most complete will. And the combination of skill and will make your education perfect and complete. And when I was in IIT, one of the main things which I experienced was there are people who have extreme high degrees of skill, and there is a very tremendous emphasis on giving high quality education. But then we also saw that so many people have addicts of different habits. They have difficulties, challenges. They are unable to control their mind and their senses. And they have challenges due to that. And personally, I witnessed so many of my own friends go through difficulties because of this. When I was in IIT, we were into a class by one of our devotees from ISKCON, and he was speaking about how the Mahamantra has a transforming effect and purifies the heart. And then he spoke about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he made the whole Bengal devotees by transforming 2 of the biggest addicts, Jagai and Madhai. So when I heard that, I became inspired. And I thought, if I get the biggest addict from my hostel for the program and he become transformed, whole hostel will become transformed. So that was my preaching strategy. So that was the first time I went and invited somebody. So I went to one of my friends who was a very, very regular drinker, alcoholic, confirmed alcoholic. So I went to him and told him that this Saturday you must come with me. He said, where? I said, Gita class. He said, are you drunk? You are inviting me? You don't know who I am? You don't know my reputation? I said, well, don't worry. Every sinner has a future. So he said, okay, I'll come on one condition. I'll bring the bottle of alcohol with me to the Gita class, and I'll sit in the class with that. Will ISKCON allow it? I got confused. So I thought I'll call the temple and ask, are such candidates allowed? And I thought they will tell me, you also don't come. We don't want this kind of people coming. This was the first time I was inviting somebody, so I was very enthusiastic. So I said, okay, on my guarantee you come. So he came on that day. And by the time we were near the classroom, near the hostel room where the program was being held, he was already half drunk, because he would begin his, activity very early. So he had his bottle in the backside of his pocket. So I told him, at least don't take this inside the room. Keep it on top of the door, on this window. He said, ISKCON wala pee to nahi jayega. I said, Arey, they don't drink tea and coffee also. Keep it here and come inside. So he said, okay, I agree. So he kept that. And then I said, I have one condition. You will not open your mouth, because the stink will come, I will be caught. So he said, okay, I'll keep quiet. But I'll get food, no? I said, no problem, you'll get at the end. So he entered, sat down. So this devotee who had come for the lecture, he looked at this new person who had come. He was very happy. Oh, new person has come. He said, what is your name? So I gave the reply. His name is so-and-so. So he said, which branch you are in? I gave the reply. Which year you are in? I gave the reply. He was bewildered. I'm asking him, he's giving the answer. I said, Prabhu, he's very shy. He will not speak much. So then as the lecture proceeded, in the middle of the lecture, he asked me, Bhojan kab milega? So I said, in ISKCON you get only in the end, after the whole lecture is over. So he waited for the class to be over. And in the middle he got up and finished the remaining bottle and came back. He could not tolerate separation. So that's a classic addict. And then when he came back, sat down, then this devotee was giving the class. He asked, will you take mala? Will you take beads? He said, yes. I said, are you going to chant? He said, he's asking me. You don't interfere. So he took the mala, went to the hostel. He had mala in one hand, bottle in another hand. He said, I have joined ISKCON. So it took me 1 week to take the mala back. And so I realized that you can give the highest quality education. But where is the education in controlling the mind and the senses and transforming the character? And therefore, dear friends, all of the educational institutions all over the world are focusing tremendously on creating highest value by equipping you with skills. And people may ask, how is spirituality going to help me? How is Bhagavad Gita going to help me? What kind of satsang, vatsang and all this is going on? Is it practical? Is it relevant? So the answer is that with all of the skills which you acquire in all of those places, if you cannot control your mind and your senses, and if you cannot manage your own self, how you are going to manage other people in your career, and how you are going to manage your entire life? And therefore, ISKCON steps into the picture by helping you control your mind and your senses and your habit and your character. And with this kind of purity in your life, you can conquer mountains and reach the pinnacle of success in your life. That's what we are trying to do. And therefore, you should know the reason you are here, because some of you may be here for the first time, and some of your other friends may have told you various things to bring you here. So I don't know exactly what stories you have been told. But the whole idea is, the purpose of coming here into this association is you want to get transformed. Yes or no? And therefore, if you want to get drunk, you go to a bar. Right? And therefore, why? Because people get inspired in each other's association. And they see, oh, He's taking 2 glasses, 3 glasses, 1 bottle. Let me also do that. So like that, when you come here, you'll see in the association, oh, someone is chanting, someone is following these principles, transforming their life, increasing the determination, seeing that you also get the determination to say no to the influence of the senses. And therefore, Sange Shakti Kalo Yuge. In Kali Yuga, individually we are powerless, but collectively we are powerful. And therefore, this association of devotees helps us increase our conviction and determination in the practice of the process, so that we can say no to the influence of the senses when they disturb us. So we'll begin with the first of the 4 of these in the cycle of creation of habits. And the first is called disturbance. And technically, in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali calls it klesha. So klesha refers to disturbances, and he describes 5 kinds of disturbances. The first disturbance is called avidya, or ignorance. And ignorance, basically, he defines it as when one considers the soul to be body. So that's the first kind of disturbance, and he calls it anitya shuchi dukkha natmasu nitya shuchi sukhatma. The body is anitya and ashuchi and dukkha. The body is temporary, unclean, and it is filled with misery. But to consider that body to be like the soul, which is clean, eternal and blissful, that is the first klesha or disturbance, and that is known as avidya. So this is a very important principle, because most of our habits and attempts to attain pleasure are directed through the body. So it is very important to understand the nature of the body, and therefore the specific word used here is ashuchi, means unclean. So with respect to the body as being unclean, the location of the body is unclean, because its origin, its location is in the womb, which is filled with unclean substances. The origin of the body is in the sperm, which is unclean. The sustenance of the body happens through various kinds of unclean substances within. The excretion which comes out is unclean. The time of death, as soon as the soul leaves the body, immediately we want to burn the body, and those who go to the funeral come and take a bath. And then, lastly, one has to have continuous effort to keep the body clean. I remember when I was in hostel, one of my friends used to take a bath only once a week. And I asked him why. He said, I'm saving water. And on Sunday, after taking a bath, he would come to the mess, with a bright smile on his face, looking very fresh. And I would ask him, "Arey, बहुत bright लग रहा, क्या बात है? स्नान किया." So that was like a weekly phenomenon. If you do not keep the body regularly clean, by default it becomes dirty. So therefore, the nature of the body is it is unpleasant, it is unclean, it is ashuchi. But avidya means that this same body which is unclean and subjected to all kinds of abominable experiences is glorified by those who are in avidya. And therefore there are so many love stories which are written, and the description of the bodies is described, and how a lover is glorified by a paramour, that you are like the beautiful moon, your eyes are like the blue lotus, your hairs are like the waves of the ocean, And if one hair falls in the dal, you won't touch it. So you glorify, but that glorification of the body is only possible in avidya or ignorance. And therefore, one should not consider body to be a suitable place to seek happiness. So that's the first principle. So there was this king, Bhartrihari. So he was very enamored by the beauty of his wife. And so he wrote 100 shlokas glorifying her beauty. So day and night he would be absorbed in her beauty. He was in samadhi, sitting and watching her. Right? So it was a very new relationship, so probably that was the reason. So then, one day, one yogi came to that, king's palace. And when Bhartrihari was sitting, the yogi gave him one ring. And after giving him the ring, he said that you give this ring to someone whom you love the most. So he took the ring and gave it to his wife because he loved her the most. For him, she was everything. All the different metaphors, analogies, similes, with nature and everything he was composing. And those 100, shlokas, you can read in Bhartrihari's Shringara Shatak. It is called Shringara Shatak. I don't recommend, but in case, you have a curiosity. So then, he gave it to his wife, and after a few days he was surprised when he was sitting in the palace. One beautiful young girl walked up and gave the same ring to the king. So Bhartrihari saw that ring and said, hey, I gave this to my wife. How it reached this lady? And then he started thinking and thinking and thinking. And then he understood what must have happened. And he wrote a beautiful shloka to express that situation. And he said, Ya chintayami satatam mai sa virakta sa chanya michyati jana sajanonya rakta. Asmat krite cha paritushyati kachi danya dhik tam cha tam cha madanam cha imam cha mam cha. Kya baat hai? So I'm sure nobody understood. That is Kali Yuga 2017. So this shloka is his expression with disgust and anger, and he is speaking the choicest, ways in which he can criticize. Like that. So previous Yuga was so cultured that even someone is in anger, that angry outburst sounds so sweet. So he writes in this verse, Ya chintayami satatam. I thought that she is the most beautiful in the whole creation, and I thought I love her the most, and I gave that ring to her. Ya chintayami satatam. I was constantly thinking about her. Maisa virakta. But she was not attached to me at all. Why? Sa chanyam ichyati jana. She was attached to somebody else. This everyone understand. Sa chanyam ichyati jana, and she gave the ring to that person. But that person, sa janonya rakta, he was attached to another girl. And he gave that ring to her. Right? And then he thought that she loved me the most, but she had another boyfriend whom she gave to. So just see, in ancient times also there were exciting plots. That's why Bahubali made so much money, right? Asmat krite cha paritushyati kachidanya. In this way they were all trying to satisfy and please each other. And finally this young girl, she got this ring from some boyfriend, but this young girl loved me secretly. And so she came and gave me the ring. And therefore in this entire episode, he concludes by saying, Dhik tam. Dhik tam cha tam cha madanam cha imam cha mam cha. So he says, Dhik tam, to hell with my wife who was disloyal to me. Dhik tam cha. Dhik tam cha, to hell with that other paramour to whom she was attached. Madanam cha, to hell with Cupid who made us all stupid. Imam cha, to hell to this entire episode. And mam cha, to hell to me also. Because I got so carried away. And so, this shloka became the first of a series of another 100 shlokas he wrote. So the first 100 shlokas was called Shringara Shatak. Now the second 100 shlokas were called Vairagya Shatak. So therefore, one of Prabhupada's disciples invited Prabhupada to his house, and when Prabhupada entered, he saw on the altar various photos, and there was the photo of a beautiful young girl also. You know, there was Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, and this girl. So Prabhupada got bewildered. Hey, what is this photo doing here? In the series of Guru Parampara. So he said, Prabhupada, you know, before coming to Krishna consciousness, I was madly attached to this girl, and what a beauty. She was so beautiful, I was so attached to her, so enchanted by her, but you know, she left me and ran away with somebody. So I got such a shock, I started asking, who am I? And then I got the Gita, I got the answers. So because of her I got connected to devotees, and because of her I got connected to you, so I consider her my guru. So Prabhupada said, oh, that may be fine, but you don't have to give such respect that you place on the series like this. So then Prabhupada said, so why you are still keeping her? So he said, she's so beautiful. Prabhupada said, compared to the beauty of this world, the beauty in the heavenly planets is 100 of times more. And compared to the beauty of the heavenly planets, the beauty in the Vaikuntha Lokas is hundreds of times more. And compared to the beauty in the Vaikuntha Lokas, the beauty of the gopis in Goloka is millions of times more. And therefore the entire process in the path of spirituality is to try to appreciate the higher taste. Param drishtva nivartate. And therefore here the first principle or the first klesha or disturbance is avidya. Everything begins with ignorance. Then this ignorance leads to the second disturbance. And the second disturbance is called asmita. Asmita means false ego. So the ignorance evolves into the false ego or false identification. And the soul starts identifying at different levels very, very seriously in an absorbed manner. Okay. So in ignorance there is misidentification, but in asmita one starts misidentifying with something very specific and with great emotions. And therefore, if something, suppose we are identifying with our expansions, then anything which happens to them also affects us emotionally. So that's the principle of more developed wrong identity. And this is a very important principle. And so we find that people are spending more and more time online. Yes or no? At least during lecture you are trying to sit and hear. Otherwise future will happen that right in front of speaker also they'll be watching online. Life is going to that extent. So the statistics reveal that in Facebook, practically every day 100 million hours of video content is uploaded, and on YouTube 1 billion hours. And as far as Facebook is concerned, there every year totally 2.5 billion comments are made. What a great use of time. And then, if you go to the pre-online media, which was television, the classic old television, in India, our friendly Doordarshan, it began like that. So television, in America, it is described that people spend close to 1600 hours per year, which amounts to around 2 months out of 12 months is spent only in TV, which amounts to around 9 years of their lifetime is swallowed by television. And in the US, by the time someone reaches the age of 18, he has already seen 16,000 instances of murder and 2 lakh instances of heavy, aggressive, destructive violence. So already we have certain misidentification because of the false ego. And then through the medium of the television, one gets further ideas. And therefore, violence is increasing all over the world, yes or no? And that's because of these impressions which are being created. I was doing a program in Yeravada jail many years ago. And Yeravada jail is a very powerful jail in Pune. And most of the inmates there, minimum qualification is murder. So you have to be highly qualified. In that sense, you can't just enter there. So one of the assistant commissioner of police was my good friend. He said, okay, do some inspirational program, help them transform their character. So we were doing a program, I was giving a talk. And one good thing about jail program is crowd is guaranteed. So there were more than 500 convicts sitting there. And I gave a talk. And then I asked for questions. One of the prisoners, he raised his hand and said, I have a question. I said, ask. He said, I will come on the stage and ask. I got bewildered. I asked the assistant commissioner who was standing next to me, who's he? And he whispered in my ear, 12 murders he has committed. So I said, am I going to be 13th? Why he wants to come on the stage? He said, don't worry, you have police protection, let him come. So he came on the stage, took the mic, and with great confidence, and in pure Hindi, it appeared as if he was giving pravachan only. He said that you in your kirtan just chanted Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo, Ramo. But the Puranas and the Upanishads actually say it is Hare Ram. So how you converted Ram to Ramo? And all of the prisoners sitting there, they clapped like anything and said, wow, even amongst us there is a Pandit. So one thing about India is, wherever you go, you'll always find somebody. Even in taxi, I go and sit. As soon as I say, oh Maharaj, suniye, do doha suniye humse. So sometimes I have to tell them, extra 5 rupees deta hu, chupchap chalao gaadi. So everyone has some connection to philosophy. That is India. If you try to avoid spirituality in this country, you cannot avoid. Even if you try to smoke bidi, you will find Ganesh bidi. If you want to drink, sometime you go to a nearby bar here. It is called Sudama Palace Beer Bar. So you cannot avoid in this place, even if you try. So I asked him after the talk, after he spoke and everything, how you entered? He was only 24 years old. He said, I got into a conflict with somebody and I have seen so many movies and this and that. I thought, badla lena chahiye. And then therefore I committed a crime. The guy got killed. And at the age of 24, he had to spend another 45 years in the prison. I said, you did not realize what is going to be the consequence of this? He said, when anger blinds you, you cannot consider consequences. And therefore, false ego has a way of completely blinding you to the reality. You identify yourself in a certain situation, and then one gets completely overwhelmed. And therefore, we find that, so many conflicts happen because we expect someone to do things in a certain way. And even when I got connected to the movement, many of my family members were bewildered and everything. So I organized a program for them in Chennai. And one of the devotees gave a talk to them, and he said that Bhagavatam says anyone who connects to spirituality, 21 generations of their family are delivered. And because now he is in your family a devotee, 21 generations will be delivered. So everyone was very happy. So my cousin came to me after the talk, took me aside and said, continue chanting. Don't give up. If you have any problem, contact me. I'll help you. So many times conflicts and disturbances happen because of asmita or false ego, where one misidentifies and gets absorbed in that principle. And so the third disturbance, which is a resultant reaction of the false ego, is attachment, or it is called raga. Sukhanushayi raga, Patanjali says. And what does this raga mean? Raga is hankering, desire, craving for pleasure, and to attain pleasure by remembering some past experiences. And therefore Patanjali is explaining this, that one of the key principles of habit is Sukhanushayi raga. Habit, the formation of habit begins by remembering a past experience of pleasure. And that's the key. Why we become attached to a certain habit? Because it has the ability to trigger off the memory of the past experience of pleasure. And that's why attachment develops. And therefore, as a result of this attachment, this memory promises to deliver the same pleasure if you repeat it. And then one gets trapped. And this memory precedes this attachment. And all of these desires are lying latent within our consciousness. So this avidya and asmita, the ignorance and the false ego, both of them combine and influence the mind to connect with these memories of the past experiences and to create desires for fresh experiences, and the attachment is created. And so therefore, we find that typically a person gets trapped due to remembering these past influences of pleasure. So this is a very important point to appreciate, that, for example, someone who's an alcoholic, and by the way, 3.3 million deaths per annum happen all over the world due to alcohol addiction. And 5% of the whole world's population is under the influence of alcoholic addiction. And therefore, when a person, he remembers that how this particular activity gave me some pleasure, he gets drawn towards that. And that's what is called as raga. And specifically when a person does not have a purpose in life, he does not have anything higher to aspire for, then he simply gets thrown around like a football in a field where 22 players are hitting the ball left and right. So a person gets hit around by the influence of the senses and the sense objects. I give the example of 3 men, or there were 2 men who were involved in some labor activity. One was digging a hole, other one was planting a tree, other one was filling up the hole. He was digging the hole, second one was filling up the hole. Digging the hole, filling up the hole. So there was someone on the bystander who was watching. They said, "Hey, what is this nonsense going on? You're creating employment or what? If you're digging the hole, why the other one is filling up the hole?" He said, "No, actually there were three of us on duty. One was supposed to dig the hole, second was supposed to plant the tree, and after planting the tree, the third was supposed to fill the hole. The second one who's planting the tree is on leave today. But we are continuing with our task." So this is a classic example of performing activities without understanding the purpose or the end goal. And therefore, majority of addictions begin when people do not have a purpose for which they are living their lives. And that's a very critical principle. When Prabhupada was in London, he was asked a question, "Swamiji, why you have come to London?" And Prabhupada said, "I have come to London because the Britishers, they spent 300-400 years in India, and they spent a lot of their time looting valuable jewels, valuable minerals from India, taking diamond, rubies, emeralds. They took all of these valuable things from India, but they forgot to take the most valuable of all jewels, the message of the Vedic literatures and the Bhagavad Gita. I have come to deliver that to you." And in the last 50 years, ISKCON, for your information, has spread Krishna consciousness all over the world and helped in distributing more than 50 crore Bhagavad Gitas all over the world. And therefore, the purpose of doing that is to help people appreciate that there has to be a purpose in your journey. Journey means destination. If you go to the ticket counter for ticket, the first question the guy across the counter will ask you, destination. And you say, "Kahin bhi." Jana kahan hai? Aapko jahan lage? Does it make sense? So for every journey you have a specific destination. But in life, do you have the destination? So therefore, the modern education and all of your schools and colleges is helping you to appreciate what to do and how to do. And ISKCON is trying to help you understand why to do what you're doing. And therefore, this is so important. And therefore, there is an institute called Alberta Gambling Research Institute. So I never knew there are gambling research institutes. And then they give statistics that 80% of people in US are in some way or the other afflicted with this influence of gambling, and which amounts to around 0.75 million youth in the age of 14 to 21. They are influenced by this gambling addiction. And 50% of all gambling addicts, they do resort to some kind of a crime or another to support their gambling addiction. So there is a famous city in US called Las Vegas. Okay. So if you have not heard, don't worry. Las Vegas is considered to be, it is called nickname Sin City. Right? If you go to New York, somebody from Mumbai goes to New York, you may consider Mumbai to be like, nice simple village. And when the New Yorker goes to Las Vegas, the New Yorker calls Las Vegas danger. Very sinful city. So you can imagine what Las Vegas is. Jai Shri Radha Gopinath ji ki. So there is a case of a famous hospital there called Sunrise Hospital. So in that Sunrise Hospital, they found that on a regular basis, near-death patients were dying before time. And they were wondering what's going on. And when they investigated, they found that the nurses who were on duty had got addicted to gambling. And because of their gambling addiction, off duty, when they were on duty, they could not forego or give up their habit of gambling. And therefore, even on duty, they started gambling. And what was their gambling? There were 2 beds, and they would place bets. Which patient will go first? Bed number 12, bed number 13. $500. And then gradually the amount increased. And then when they realized that they are going to lose money, they started switching off life support systems. So many times people say, hey, what's in a gambling? It's all simple. My own money, my hard-earned money, I am putting there. What's your problem in life? But how it can impact? Why? Because every time you remember, the memory comes of a previous experience when you have made some money, when you got that rush. And that impels you towards this raga or attachment. And therefore, we have to appreciate this. And when in the West, many people call, they know something about Indian philosophy, and then they smoke all kinds of drugs and they call it Shiv Prasad. Right? Why? Lord Shiva also was smoking ganja and this and that. But Prabhupada said he can drink poison also. So an incarnation or an expansion of Lord Shiva, Shankaracharya, when he was going with his disciples, he went into a liquor shop. And then he looked at the liquor and said, oh, this is Brahman. I am Brahman. This is Brahman. Brahman going into Brahman. So the followers had no problem with that. Okay, Brahman going into Brahman. Then they went to another shop where they were smelting iron. So the iron was smelted. Right? So ironsmith shop. So Shankaracharya looked at that melted iron, hot, molten iron, and said, Brahman, this is Brahman. Lifted it. Brahman go into Brahman. Follower ran away. Because they couldn't handle that. So therefore, if someone is referring to this as Brahman, or someone is using some kind, I was in a program and there was this gentleman sitting and not clapping in the kirtan. And it was agitating me. And I was telling, Jor se, Jor se. And he went, Jor se. The more I was saying Jor se, the lesser he was doing. It was having opposite effect. So after the program, I wanted to talk to him, and I saw in the corner, he had put some tobacco on his hand and he was hitting like anything. With full enthusiasm and with focused attention, concentration. And he had kept a silver, small box and this and that very carefully. It was like a very precious item. It was like his pran dhan, which he was carrying. So I told him, कि अरे कीर्तन में नहीं गाए, अब तंबाकू जोर जोर से ताली बजा रहे, क्या चल रहा है? महाराज, ये तंबाकू नहीं, ये संजीवनी बूटी है. I said, who told you that? He said, अरे Hanumanji brought this and Lakshman smelt this, then he got energy. So that is India. That not only there is sense gratification, behind that there will be purport from philosophy also. So therefore, these habits are created due to previous memories of previous experiences of pleasure. And that is what is described here as Sukhanushayi, Sukha Anushayi Raga. That raga, attachment, follows the previous memory of pleasure. And opposite to that, the fourth element of disturbance or klesha is dvesha. Dvesha means avoiding pain. So previous memory of pain makes us do things in a way that we avoid that. And everyone has experience with exams. As soon as exam is declared, memory is triggered. Last time kya hua? Horror. Error. Right? So even you may go through the exam, but then result is even more deadly. So if you have some bad experiences, it makes you avoid that pain. Right? And therefore, this principle is called dvesha. Like that. We have one nice devotee. He was running a business, and they had some, experiences of loss and profit and this and that. So he just started chanting. So then he suddenly got some inspiration. He went to his father and he said that I am feeling very fearful that we are going to lose money, and I'm inspired by this thought that we should sell away this particular shares in this company. His father said, who told you to sell those shares? Or from where you are getting that idea? He said, I'm chanting the holy names. And the holy name is inspiring me. Father said, stop chanting then. You are getting weird ideas. So he said, no, I am convinced about it. So he went to the fund manager, who was in HSBC, and told him that you sell away these shares. There is going to be some major loss. He said, but I'm an MBA finance, I'm reading the markets, I don't see any indication like that. Why you are getting so paranoid? He said, no, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I am getting some idea like that. So it is my money, you sell all these shares. So he sold it off. In 1 week's time, the Lehman Brothers collapsed. This was like 10 years ago. And then there was a global economic collapse. And because this family sold those shares, they saved 10 crore rupees. The father was in ecstasy. He called the son, said, Beta, chant more. And this HSBC guy called him and said, hey, what was that mantra you're talking about? I didn't learn that at MBA. And then he actually got inspired and he left that job and he took a PhD so that he could devote more time, understanding spirituality. So therefore, we have a natural tendency that if we have some kind of a previous experience of some kind of loss, we are more conscious about that because we want to avoid that pain. That's called dvesha. That's the fourth kind of disturbance. And the fifth is called abhinivesha. Abhinivesha is called fear of death. And Patanjali explains that this fear of death or abhinivesha is across all classes of people, including the greatest scholars who have acquired tremendous amount of knowledge, but still that accumulation of knowledge cannot guarantee that they can be free from the influence of death or the fear of death. Abhinivesha. So therefore, this fear of death makes a person do all kinds of things, and it's there at the back of everybody's mind, the fear of death. Somebody came to Prabhupada and said, I have no fear. I don't fear death. You're talking about death and trying to scare everybody. I have no fear of death. Prabhupada said, at the red light signal, while crossing the road, do you stop at the red light or not? He said, yes. So that means you are fearing death. Because if you have no fear, why you should look at red light, green light? He said, I am eternal. I am Amar. Right? So there was this gentleman who went to another country. And this gentleman had a friend, and he told his friend, take care of my family. My mother is there, my family is there, you take care of that. And my cat is there. Please take care of the cat. So then when he went abroad, he got a letter from his friend. That, oh my dear friend, sorry to say, your cat is dead. So this guy got really upset. He wrote back a letter. Friend, what kind of letter you are writing? This is not the way to express somebody's death. You should have written the first letter saying, my dear friend, your cat is doing well. Sometimes he is walking on the roof. Letter ends. After 1 month, write another letter saying, my dear friend, cat is well. While walking on the roof, he fell down. That's it. Third letter should come after another month. That when that cat fell down, he sustained injury. We took him to the hospital. We are taking good care of him. Doctors say everything will be all right. Then next month you send another letter saying that, oh, the doctors tried their level best, but in spite of that, in the midst of everybody praying and chanting and everything, the cat left. That is how you should release the bad news. Not that cat is dead. So he gave such an advice to his friend, sent the letter. Next letter came from the friend. Dear friend, your mother is doing well. Sometimes she is walking on the roof. So you go this way or that way. Can you avoid the reality? What is the reality? Death is guaranteed. Somebody asked Prabhupada, science and technology has progressed so much, death rate is going down. Prabhupada said, death rate is same, 100%. Everyone is subjected to death. So that is called abhinivesh, fear of death. And it is all in the deepest psyche of our mind. However much we may try to express that we are very cool. How's life? Cool. Everything okay? Okay. Any problem? No problem. So, these 5, avidya, ignorance, asmita, false ego, raga, attachment, dvesha, aversion, and abhinivesha, fear of death, these are called as the 5 kleshas or disturbances. Okay. It is like the wind which blows over the ocean of chitta. And when the wind blows over the ocean of chitta, then the waves are created. So when the wind blows over the water, the waves are created. So these disturbances result in the next step. So these are called disturbances. These disturbances create 5 mental states, and they are called vrittis. And the 5 mental states, at any given point of time, each one of us has to be in one of these 5. You can't say, no, I am beyond 5. Me, I am beyond those 5. We have to be at any given point. The mind has to be in one of these 5 states only. So what are they? So Patanjali says, Pramana viparyaya vikalpa nidra smritayah. These are the 5 states of the mind. So this is the second step of the habit formation. That these 5 disturbances push in a certain way, and it creates these 5 waves or mental states. The first is pramana. Pramana means getting the right knowledge. Second is viparyaya. Viparyaya means error. Right knowledge means you see things as they are. Okay, you are in a sober state. You are seeing this vyasas and you are seeing the harmonium, you are seeing the mic. From the eyes, from the ears, you are hearing certain sound. So that's through pratyaksha, anumana and shabda. These are the first kind of vritti or pramana, right knowledge. The mind is processing the right knowledge. The second state is viparyaya, error. When somebody drinks alcohol, then he sees 2 moons. And then he says, I'm going to do research. And I'm going to publish paper on astronomy. 2 moons. Right? So he's seeing the 2 moons. You can't convince him it is 1 moon. Because in the state he is in, he is seeing 2 moons. And when 2 drunks come together, they see 4 moons. And if a group of us try to convince them, they'll convince us that something is wrong with us. So therefore that is called viparyaya. And therefore that is the second state. Third is vikalpa, which is imagination. Imagination means in words it may appear to be normal and we may not catch it. Like the sun rises and sets. So is there any problem in this sentence? No. But in reality, does the sun rise and then set? Like, does it happen like that? Or we say time flies. It's a common term we use. Time flies. So does the time get wings and then suddenly you see the time flying? And you say, hey, ud gaya. So this comes in the category of vikalpa or imagination, where the certain concept is there, but for purpose of social dialogue, we speak in a certain manner, but actually it doesn't represent anything factual. The fourth aspect or fourth mental state is nidra. Now everyone is familiar with this. Nidra means deep sleep. Okay, so when the tamogun fully overwhelms the buddhi, then it is called deep sleep. When it is not full tamogun, when the touch of rajogun is more, then dreaming state comes, and that doesn't come under vritti. Okay, so deep sleep where, and the deep sleep also, when there is touch of sattvagun in the deep sleep, you wake up refreshed. Right? And then when there is a touch of rajogun with that, tamogun, then you wake up feeling that you're restless. And then if there is, tamogun, and then you wake up feeling that you're very sluggish and feeling very lazy and want to sleep more and things like that. So this is not something esoteric. We experience it on a regular basis. I was doing a program at MIT, and after the program I was going through the corridors and I found one poster or notice, and it was on, research. They were asking for volunteers, those who would like to help in doing research on sleeping pills. So in medical research, one of the biggest investments happens in psychiatric drugs and sleep-inducing drugs. And in many places of the world, sleep clinics have become very prominent. Okay. So what I saw in that notice, it said, we are looking for volunteers who would help in this research, who have to come at 9 p.m., sleep at 9 p.m., get up at 6 a.m. And if you sleep at 9 p.m. and go from the lab at 6 a.m., we will give you $7,000 a month for being a volunteer. So that's quite a lot of money. Okay. So that's a lot of money, more than 4 lakhs. For those who may not know the conversion and may wonder, 7,000, 4 lakhs. So I see now some emotions are coming. So if you get 4 lakhs for just sleeping from 9 to 6, but I found out that hardly anybody volunteered. Why? Because that was the party time. Who will go and volunteer to sleep? And finally they said, one of the students was telling me, then a boy from Mumbai taking education loan came there. He saw that. And he got jhatka. And he went and volunteered. And he was even negotiating that $2,000-3,000 extra you give, I will sleep 3-4 hours more. But Nidra is one of those states. So what are the 4 states in Vritti? Pramana, which is the right knowledge, Viparyaya, error or wrong kind of perception and knowledge. Third, Vikalpa is imagination. 4th is Nidra. And the 5th most important Vritti or the mental state is Smriti. Smriti means memory. So Smriti is defined beautifully by Patanjali in 1.11 in his sutras. Anubhuta Vishayam Samparosha Smritihi. Anubhuta Vishayam Asamparosha Smriti. So Anubhuta means experience, and Vishayam means of an object of the senses. So Anubhutam Vishayam means sensory experience, and Asamparosha means that which does not slip away, that which does not fall away. Not slipping is called Asamparosha. So Anubhuta Vishayam Asamparosha means unforgotten sensory experience is called Smriti or memory. So therefore we discussed last time that it is this Smriti which ultimately in the next steps it will go through and then trigger off the raga, and then the cycle continues. So therefore this is a very important principle, that memories are reactivation of imprints of the sense objects one has experienced and recognized in the past. So the example is given, if Chitta is like a lake, then this memory is like the pebbles, and to the extent the lake is clear, you are able to see the pebbles. So retrievable, thoughts, they come under memory, and those which cannot be retrieved, they come under subconscious. So therefore, this is a very important principle to appreciate, that all of us have gone through various experiences, and these experiences or memories become part of the vritti. So this kleshas, 5 types of kleshas result in 5 kinds of vrittis. And so these vrittis, they actually create the next influence. So the disturbances create 5 mental states. 5 kinds of disturbance create 5 mental states, and these 5 mental states create the next step. They create the imprints, and the imprints are called as sanskar. Sanskar are nothing but the imprints, which are like the personality traits, habits, and compulsive behavior. Addictions are all created because of these imprints. And these imprints are not created just like that. Behind them, there is a huge science of the kleshas and the vrittis. And therefore, for example, when somebody smokes, so the smoking ultimately is stored as an imprint in the chitta. It becomes a sanskara. And then this ultimately activates as desirable memory, and this samskara provokes the 4th element, and that is called action or karma. So klesha, vritti, samskara, and that samskara gives impetus to karma, which is shubha or ashubha, auspicious or inauspicious, pious or impious, positive or negative. So these samskaras actually impel these, and when the action is created, that particular action creates several reactions. And therefore, every moment we are acting, and each one of those actions is creating a series of reactions. And then that reaction is creating, we are responding to those reactions, creating further actions. So that creates re-reaction. And then we respond to that re-reaction and create re-reaction. And therefore, if every action is compared to a drop, nahi kaschit kshanamapi jata tishthat karmakrit karyatehi avashak karma sarva prakritir jair gunair. The soul cannot remain without action for even a moment. So just imagine in 24 hours how many actions, how many droplets we are creating of action and reaction. And therefore, if you consider an entire lifespan, it is called an ocean. And that ocean of action and reaction is called samsara sagar. That samsara sagar is nothing but all of the reactions which we have created, which we have to experience. And therefore, the volume of reactions we create is such that it cannot all be experienced in one lifetime. The debt is so huge, we cannot repay in one lifetime. So you have to be born again, and again, and again. And this becomes the basis for our rebirth. And therefore, this samsara sagar is nothing but the ocean of actions and reaction. And then this further then affects the kleshas. So it goes in a cycle. So the klesha, vritti, samskara, karma. Then that karmas further create more kleshas, more vrittis, more sanskaras. And then it creates further klesha, further vritti, further samskara, further karma. That karma creates further klesha, further. And then that vritti creates, that samskar creates, that karma creates, klesha creates, vritti creates, and then we keep going round and round in circle. So what to do? Let us take prasad now. So that results in the person saying, phas gaya. When you say phas gaya, the purport of phas gaya we have described last 1 hour. When people say, मैं फंस गया हूँ, बुरी तरह फंस गया हूँ, दलदल में धस गया हूँ, मन में घस गया हूँ. So behind that, this is the whole cycle. And therefore, we have to appreciate that it is not such a easy thing, that you can't just give a pep talk and help a guy come out. Smoking is bad. You can give up. You can do it. Hum honge kamyab. Chalo. Come on, give it up. You know, it's not sufficient, because this is what is known as mental disease. All of these have inflicted the mind as a disease. So therefore, many times when people say that, oh, ISKCON is doing too much spirituality, this, that, we are not into spirituality, I say, hey, what spirituality? We are into health care. This is mental health care. That's all. Oh, mental health care. That's what it is all about. Because these kleshas, vrittis create samskaras, and those sanskaras keep pushing you to perform good and bad action, and for that, billions of dollars have to be spent amongst countries all over the world to protect people from the influence of those ashubh karmas. And therefore, Patanjali, he says, as a solution, yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. And that is the classic definition of yoga. So how do you get out of this cycle of habits? You get out of the cycle of habits through yoga. How do you get out? So yoga is the bona fide treatment therapy by which one can get out of this cycle of habits. So that chitta vritti is this cycle of disturbances, the cyclonic storms going on within the mind. It's called chitta vritti. So yoga, what it does, chitta vritti, that this cycle which is going at full speed, yoga takes the plug out. And then when the plug is taken out, then the cycle gradually dies down and stops. That's called chitta vritti nirodha. Nirodha means putting a stop. And therefore, yoga is extremely powerful, but it has to be understood in the right context. So yoga is the process of stilling the changing states of the mind. So don't think yoga is just doing various postures, standing on the head and doing all kinds of things, and that is yoga. What is yoga? Chitta vritti nirodha, which is to still the changing state of the mind. And because knowledge of yoga is becoming more and more predominant and popular, So I am going into some detail to explain to all of you so that you appreciate what is the purpose of yoga. That you cannot appreciate yoga till you appreciate the working of the chitta. How the chitta vritti, how all of these changing states of the chitta happen, till you understand that. You cannot understand, till you understand the problem, you can't understand the solution. And therefore, we have to appreciate what His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada has done. The Addictions magazine, Washington DC Area Council on Alcoholics, they published Krishna consciousness is close to 100% successful in stopping drug use amongst those who voluntarily enter the program. This is a report in Washington DC. Then Woody Kleen, who is the press secretary, office of the mayor, New York City, he writes, Mayor Lindsay is most appreciative of the work that your society is doing, especially in the realm of combating drug addiction. Then Fraser MacDonald, who is a medical superintendent, Carrington Hospital, Auckland, New Zealand, he says, the combination of our medical care of the hospital and the spiritual care from the Hare Krishna philosophy has resulted in a very powerful tool indeed for the treatment of drug addiction, and for this we are very grateful to ISKCON. Then we have Morris Jeff, New Orleans Welfare Director. New Orleans Welfare Director in America. He says, ISKCON has done good work in establishing a workable alternative to the problem of drug addiction and alienation. So why I am sharing these quotes? To appreciate that this Chitta Vritti Nirodha, as defined by Patanjali, has also been accomplished and recommended in this age of Kali by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Apane Mahaprabhu tar mana phiraila, darshana smarane yara jagata tarila. That just by remembering Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the heart and the minds of a complete drunk addict got transformed, and he became eager to serve the Lord. Hena prema Sri Chaitanya dilayata tatha jagai madhai paryant anyar ka katha. And Mahaprabhu delivered the most fallen in this age by the principle of spreading Harinam Sankirtan. And therefore what is described here by Patanjali as Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calls it Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapanam. The same effect which is desired through yoga is impacted by the process of chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And therefore in the 6th canto Srimad Bhagavatam there is a story of Ajamil. And Ajamil had done all kinds of austerities in his childhood. He had done everything possible. But still, when he went to the forest one day, he saw a scene. And it is described when he saw a prostitute embracing a young man, he got bewildered. And he got the prostitute home, he got distracted, he became completely attached to her. He became an alcohol addict, he started stealing, gambling, killing, doing all kinds of things. He became a total debauchee. And so it is described, Stambhayan atmanatmanam yavat sattvam yatha shrutam na shashaka samadhatum mano madana vepitam. So the same principle is described here, what Patanjali is describing as waves of the mind. Mano madana vepitam. When the mind was hit by the influence of Cupid, Stambhayana atmanatmanam. Ajamil tried to control his mind. He recollected all the verses from the Shastras that no, I must not become a victim to illicit sex. I must control my mind. I must control my senses. This is not correct. This is not good. Yavat sattvam yathashrutam, according to what he had heard, according to all of his determination at his disposal. Na shashaka samadhatum, but in spite of that, simply theoretical knowledge was not sufficient for him to stop the influence of the burning inferno of lust which was within his mind. And therefore the whole world is spending billions of dollars of research on all kinds of medicines for curing all kinds of diseases. But you go to any pharmacy store anywhere in the world, you will not find a single medicine which can cure the influence of lust, greed, envy, pride and anger and illusion. And that medicine is only available in the temples and the spiritual places all over the world. And therefore, Ajamil became totally bewildered. And he became sinful. And so here, Bhagavatam describes, Kechit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana agham dhunvanti karsneya niharam iva bhaskara. That even though we may do various things to subdue some of our desires, but the desire to enjoy, till it is uprooted, it will keep coming up again, it will keep sprouting. And therefore, the best method is Vasudeva Parayana. Na tathahi aghavan rajan puyeta tapa adibhi yatha Krishna arpita pranas tat purusha nishevaya. Even if someone is the most sinful addict, Aghavan Rajan, filled with all kinds of addictive habits, Puyeta Tapa Adibhi, he cannot purify himself just by doing some austerity, by taking some mere superficial vows. No, I will restrain myself, I will not do this, I am determined, I take a new year vow, I take this vow, that vow. No. Yatha Krishnarpita Prana Tat Purusha Nishevaya. One has to engage in serving a devotee who has dedicated himself to serve Krishna. And from that service to Krishna's devotees, the strength arises in the heart. Tat Purusha Nishevaya. And therefore he calls this Sadri Chinohi Ayam Loke. This is the most appropriate and auspicious path. Panthaha